Hi, Misha here, and this is one a couple of people have asked me about, and honestly I thought I had already done a video on it, but really I had just featured it in a couple of compilations, so why not? This is the USS Franklin, as seen in 2016's Star Trek Beyond. It's kind of an interesting ship in that it officially would be in both the Kelvin and the Prime timelines because it predates the whole Nero incursion thing. According to Scotty in the film, this was Earth's first Warp 4 capable ship. Now we know from Enterprise, the series, that the NX-01 was Earth's first Warp 5 capable ship, and that it launched in 2151. We also know that about a decade prior to that, 2140, 2142, in that era, they were still working on getting Warp 2 and Warp 3 going. So to get to Warp 4, that means this would have had to have launched later. So kind of, my best estimate would be around 2146, 2148 in that time period. Based on the screen and what we see, we can say it's about 137 meters long. So not tiny, but a lot of that is engine. The NX-01, by comparison, is about 225 meters long. So, yeah, about 90 meters shorter. We know it has 3 decks, at least full decks, based on the film. We also know it has polarized hull plating and phase cannons. Don't really know a crew, but kind of based on other Earth ships of that era and its size, you know, about 30 would be a decent estimate. And we know it has a large music library because of the film. It's about all we really know. It's said that this was being used as a freighter, but that is post Federation Foundation in 2161, by which time it would have been well over a decade old and, you know, dated technology. So it makes sense that it would have been used as a freighter then, but I don't think it would have originally been a freighter. With an experimental or first Warp 4 engine, at most it would have been maybe like a fast courier to colonies, but probably not just a standard freighter, unless it was carrying really valuable cargo. But it makes sense that later on it would have been reworked. We also know, based on the name USS and the registry, that it was probably recommissioned after the Federation. We also can assume it was used in the Romulan War, which took place around 2155 to 2160. And so it was probably used in some capacity during that war. And that's about what we know. It was lost in space, no robots, and then, at least in the Kelvin timeline, rediscovered by the crew of the Enterprise about 100 years later. In the Prime timeline, it's presumably still lost or something, found earlier. We don't know. Of course, the real world explanation is this ship was created for the film, so yeah. The Eaglemoss model is die-cast, as usual, with the metal being the hull, the saucer, I mean. And then the plastic being the nacelles. And struts. Pretty basic configuration. Very thick saucer. A neat ship, even though it wasn't really planned, it fits pretty well within the timeline with the NX-01 and the original Constitution. It definitely doesn't look out of place. So I could definitely fit it in my fleet. I know that all the JJ verse ships that Eaglemoss has done end up in their special series, which is the medium scale. Honestly, I would have liked this to be in the standard scale so it could sit next to things like the NX-01 or the Warp Delta or the Intrepid type. But there you have it. But it's a neat model, and it's one of the first Kelvin ones I got into. I was kind of slow to get into those. I like Beyond. I don't know. I have my own feelings about the films. I don't hate them, but as a side project, I thought they were pretty good, but as Prime Star Trek, not so much. I just don't think Star Trek does great as films. I mean, if you have a series and then do some films afterwards, that's okay, but trying to establish characters and everything in films, that works for some series like Star Wars, but it just doesn't work for the way Star Trek is structured. Nice thing about a series, it gives you time to really get to know the characters, and hey, if you have a bad episode now and again, everyone understands when you're doing films, if you have a bad film, it can literally kill a franchise. So there's far less room. Plus, let's be honest, some of the series coming out today have better writing and the same production values as actual movies, so yeah. But anyway, yeah, the USS Franklin. We're going to call this the Franklin type, or I would even call it the Franklin class, since it was the first to go Warp 4. We can assume that this whole style, this class, this was the first one, so it could have been named after. On the other hand, you know, the Enterprise NX-01 was the NX class, so this could have been the NV class or the NU class. I don't know. We really don't know how they were naming them back then. But I've seen some places say it's a Freedom class. That doesn't make sense. I don't know why they would. It's either going to be Franklin class or alphanumerical name. At least that's how I would perceive it. And plus, we already have a Freedom class from the Next Generation era, so why have multiples? That just confuses things. Anywho, guys, hope this was enjoyable to some people. Just figured might as well do it. Any questions or comments, please do post them below. And if you could, like, share, and subscribe, and check out some other videos. This is Misha, and I'll catch you very soon next time.